So I'm super happy to have with me today Rebecca Cribbin. I finally pinned Rebecca down because I last spoke about meeting Rebecca in May, and it was a podcast. It was about 50 podcasts ago, I think, and I said I'm going to get Rebecca on the show very, very soon, and here we are, nearly 9 months later. So better late than never, Rebecca. We've met up since then, and you've always been so busy, but it's absolutely super to finally pin you down.
Excellent. So good to be here with you, Heather. Yes, we have met in all sorts of places all over the world, and how fabulous and how lucky are we to be able to have the opportunity to do those things.
Well, yes. I mean, you've done a lot of travelling. You've done a huge amount of travelling this last year, so I've finally tracked you down back in near Sydney. So
yes,
this is great.
I'm back in Australia at home for a little while. In fact, I'm off again on Tuesday, so we've just managed to fit in before I head back your way for a month for a family holiday, Heather. So I've got my children and my grandbaby, and we're all headed your direction.
Oh yes, of course.
Which will be a bit of fun.
You are a Gigi now.
Gigi, that's right. You got it. You remembered, darling. Thank you. Yes, I am. I'm way too young, I think, or I'm pretending that I'm way too young to be a grandma. So I thought Gigi was more appropriate.
I think Gigi is lovely, and
I laugh.
And you are way too young.
I'm going to poke him in the eye if he calls me grandma. Smack his bum if he calls me grandma. I'm no grandma. I'm your Gigi.
I think Gigi's the best.
Anyway.
I wish I'd chosen Gigi.
Well, that's right.
So tell us a bit, and for those of you who haven't come across you, anybody's been to any conference in Europe, North America, South America will have come across you, but for unfortunates who have not, can you give us a little bit of a background on what you do and how you got to where you are now?
Certainly. Well, the last 12 years, well, coming up 13 years now, have been a roller coaster road for me, to say the least. I've worked my butt off, laughed a lot, cried a lot, and learnt a lot of tough lessons along the way. Like you, Heather, we've talked about this before. In 2010, my kids were 9 and 11, and I was a real estate agent with my own business, selling houses and permanently renting property as well in Australia near Sydney. And the opportunity arose to manage one lonely short-term rental, and the rest is history. Over those 13 years now, my team have looked after 1,300 properties. We've taken 65,000 bookings with a value of over $100 million. And most importantly to me, we've helped 500,000 families or people take fabulous holidays and create memories. And I think that's what we as short-term rental managers can be very proud of, is that we spend a lot of our time helping people create beautiful memories. During that time, of course, I've been a woman, which is not always the easiest. I've been a mother. I've worked with my husband in a startup. That brought all its own challenges, obviously, and I laugh because I love the song by Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, because I think that was my mantra in the early days. In those 12 years, I've also lost my mother, which was a difficult time for me. Moved 4 times, renovated 5 houses, got divorced, got heartbroken, repartnered with my beautiful David, that I think he's actually more famous on the short-term rentals industry set than I am. God love him. And started 4 businesses, raised my children and other people's children. Heather, I was always the house where the children came to hang out, and it seems as though, and I've always had young kids working for me as well, and I pride myself on building a business that's very family orientated, and those children become part of my family, the young ones and the old ones as well, of course. And I think I'm proud to say that I've been very successful, and I've built a fabulous business, but I've learnt a lot of tough lessons along the way, and I think we're going to share some of those today.
Exactly, because I sat in on your session at the Direct Books Summit in Barcelona, and it was 12 lessons that you've learned in 12 years, and every single one of them resonated with me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've been there, I've done this. And I thought, and this is why I said at the time, got to get you on and talk about these 12 lessons, because I think they're going to be super helpful, even if it's just for people to know that they're not alone. I think that's one of the biggest things.
That we're all fighting the same battle, aren't we? We're all fighting the same battles. We all have the same problems.
Yeah.
And we all... And we can. I think it probably, for you and many of the other women that have been in that room, and men of course, but not necessarily as much, because a bit of what I talk about is about being a woman and a mother and now a grandmother. I think running through and reflecting on our history is a bit like a cuddle for all of us, isn't it? It's like,
that's a great way of putting it.
I get it. Well, when you share your story.
Yeah, let's kick off with the first one then.
Okay, so the first one is that revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. So I think that's a lesson I learnt the hard way. There's been some times over the years that I've really focused on building revenue, but then I realised that I was sacrificing my profit by spending too much money on actually building the revenue up and bringing in sales and adding resource and employing people that, I mean, I'd agree with anybody. You've got to employ smart people who are smarter than yourself. But I think sometimes you've really got to, well, all the time, if I reflect back, I have to remember that profit is the sanity, and that's where you make money. That's how you build a business that becomes an asset. You've got to keep your eye on the prize. You've got to increase your revenue, but you've also got to decrease your expenses and be laser focused on the numbers. Most important. A little example that I share is that if 100 businesses start, 2 years later there's 20 left, 4 years later there's 4 left, and of those people, only 1% earn more than $1 million profit per year. So you've got a 1 in 100 chance, if you start your business, of earning more than $1 million profit a year. And I think for those people that are on the circuit with us and doing the same job as us, they should pat themselves on the back and realise just how well they're doing if they've been in business for more than 4 years, and remember to focus on the bottom line.
Yeah,
that's number one.
It's interesting. I was talking to Chris Morn from IPRAC yesterday, and he was just talking about financial hygiene and the fact that when COVID hit, he had 3 years of running costs to keep him going, and it was just about taking care of that money. So that was a good one. Okay, let's go for the next one.
Excellent. Okay, the next one is make the time now. In the beginning, when you're hungry and you're enthusiastic, you think that you actually have to work all the time. I've worked 13, 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week sometimes, but you've got to set the habits up, and you decide your future, but really it's the habits that you create that decide your future, and you're in control of it. And so our businesses are monsters. But if we're not disciplined, we don't make the time now to have time with our family, our partners, or husbands or wives. Go work in the canteen in Australia. I don't know what you call it over in the US or in Europe, but ours is the little canteen where the children come and buy their lunches. And I remember my kids used to absolutely love it when Mum was there, because they'd bring all their kids to the canteen and they'd all buy red frogs. and I'd give them the red frogs, of course. They didn't have to pay for them, and they thought it was the best, and my kids thought it was. Book in your time, put it in your default diary so that you make sure, because you can never get the time back, Heather. Make the time now. And also for your wellness, meditation, exercise, food, a well you means a well business. Nothing is more important than making the time now to fit in all the things that set you up for success as far as relationships and health are concerned, in my opinion. Make the time now is number 2. Yeah,
and I think that's great. I was 20 years as a property manager, and when I left, when I sold the business, I had my first summer in 20 years that I enjoyed it. And I could have done this before, but I didn't. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and you've got to make, so that is why that advice is so important. We've both been there. I've had moments, and now, as we've discussed, that I am making the time to head overseas. And we've just been through a summer here in Australia because it's the other side of the world, and we're in the middle of our peak season. So we're having all that sort of fun at the moment. Moving on to number 3, this is one I think that is really tough. Develop a thick skin. It's a tough gig running these businesses. Early days, I took everything to heart, and every guest and every owner, I discounted, I gave refunds, I donated to every football, soccer, netball, tennis club, every charity that came along I felt sorry for. I let people cancel their bookings because their dog died, and I needed to develop a thick skin and not take anything personally. There were many times I got teary. I think now I'm probably, after not quite as long as you, beautiful Heather, but nearly, I'm getting there. I'm probably a bit of a bitch, really, which is probably... that's actually not true. I'm probably seen as a bit of a bitch, though, because I've had to develop a thick skin in order to survive in this industry. You can imagine, like you would have, 500,000 guests all, and I think probably 10% of them try it on in some way, shape or form. So as far as guests and owners are concerned, develop a thick skin and don't take anything personally or anything to heart. Another thing in developing a thick skin is confronting the breach. Like when something goes wrong, you've got to confront it, not bury it. And my thin would, with my team, would mean that I wanted to say something about where they breached something. And I know breach is a hard word, but I think that saying is fabulous, confront the breach. So I would not do anything about it. And then there'd be 10 breaches and I wanted to kill someone, right? If I'd have confronted the first breach and had a bit of a thicker skin in that regard, then it would never have got to the 10th breach. And I probably wouldn't have been so pent up and so cranky about the situation. So I had to realise in building my thick skin that it's not personal. And I should have taught my team more to understand that the reason that I am giving feedback is not personal. It's so that we can do better in our business. So all of that, and complain while you're still happy. Yeah? Confronting the beaches. Give feedback while you're still happy.
Yeah.
I think is... Yeah, because otherwise it all goes pear-shaped, as they say. So number 3 is develop a thick skin with your guests, your owners, and your team. And yes, always confront the breach while you're still happy. It's not personal. It doesn't mean that you're unemotional either. It's more professional to have a thick skin. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, next.
Beautiful. So this one could be a little bit controversial post-COVID. If possible, work away from home, kids and life partners while you're building your business. Now, I guess things have changed, as I said, since COVID, and a lot of people are working from home. But for me, it was about I need to distinguish between where I work and where I play. And that meant a desk in an office for me.
Yeah.
It's hard in a startup because it's an extra expense, but that for me, and I went into business with my husband, and if I really reflect on it, we were married for 20 something years, but in the end it probably was one of the trigger factors that led to our relationship's demise. Fortunately, we're still great friends, and this week we're all, with my grown-up children and grandchild, we're all going to Mexico for 10 days holiday. So it ended okay in the end, but working with your life partner, working with your kids in the room is tough. I did it. I had my kids, I picked them up from school and I sat them in front of a television. But with reflection, I think if I'd have separated those things a little bit more, I could have made the time now for it, but I could have also focused 100% on getting shit done.
Even if
there was a lot of times when I was operating at 50.
Even if it's a she shed in the garden, just
it doesn't matter as long as it's a space exactly.
away.
You stay away from the washing machine, and the big one, Heather, is stay away from the fridge.
I was just going to say stay away from the fridge.
So if you're not at home, you can't go to the fridge or the washing machine, the two places that I dislike the most. I laugh with my children because they do remember there were many times when they found their mother on the laundry floor crying, and they would wonder why mum was crying, and most of the time it was because the straw that broke the camel's back was the soccer socks. I spent my entire life turning dirty, stinking soccer socks inside the right way so that they could be washed, and that was the culmination of all the stress. And I wanted to insert the soccer socks not into the washing machine, somewhere else, and threatened to put them under my children's pillows if they didn't turn them in the right way. So yeah, stay away if possible. Work. Number 4 is, if possible, work away from home and your kids.
Yeah.
And your life partners.
That's a great one.
Not always easy, but yeah. Yes. So moving on to number 5, take risks, but only the calculated ones.
That's great.
So I guess I'm a risk taker in work, Heather, but I'm a real scaredy cat personally. So it's actually been a little conundrum for me. I'm certainly no daredevil when it comes to my personal life or my adventure life or anything along those lines, but I've been a huge risk taker in business. There's been many times that I have hired somebody before I knew my business could afford them, and there's been many times that I've taken risks when I thought that I could do it, but I was definitely not sure. But I always calculated it as well. To scale a business is a risk for anybody, I guess. And what I did was, I call the calculation is, sometimes it's a dream, but success leaves clues. So I've always looked at other people's success stories and read and chased mentors and paid for a great coach, and I've done some planning every week. I've done that blue sky thinking, even if it's on my own when I'm lying awake in the middle of the night, because there's so much on my mind. I try to move my mind away from day-to-day actions by having a piece of paper beside the bed and a pen. But I thought, well, I may as well do some blue sky thinking. And that taking a risk also comes down to, if you really want to be successful, in my opinion, it's really hard to do that if you're really conservative.
That is a great point. That's a lovely quote.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, it's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. And I think my key line to that, if you're going to jump, you've got to jump, and you've got to jump hard. Mm-hmm. And I did that, and I'm proud of myself for that, to be able to, in business, not be as scaredy cat like I am in my personal life, and plan it, make sure you think it through well, then jump hard. If you haven't done all that planning, it's a gamble, and there's a very big difference between a risk and a gamble.
Yeah.
And I don't gamble anything.
Yep.
I take risks, but I think about them very hard and before I go, and then I go full hard into it. So number 5 is take risks, but only the calculated ones.
Yeah, and I think that is so important. You said the difference between a risk and a gamble. If you're doing a calculated risk, then you've covered off what is likely to happen. So love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's beautiful. So the next one we all resonate with, which is recruit the best and outsource the rest. As Richard Branson said to me once upon a time, always recruit people smarter than yourself. In the group that I was lucky enough to be in with him in South Africa in 2018, There's lots of things in regards to recruitment, isn't there, Heather? And it's not my forte by any means of the imagination. I've made some crackingly good decisions, and I've made more crackingly bad ones when it comes to hiring and firing.
Yeah.
I think I've hired the right people and I've hired the wrong people, and I've fired the right people and I've fired the wrong people as well. And in Australia, it's a very, very difficult process, much more difficult than in America. Once they've been with you 6 months, it's almost impossible to move them on. So it comes back to job descriptions, KPIs, goals, 365-degree feedback, hire slow, fire fast. Pay peanuts, get monkeys. I think that's an interesting one. And whatever's missing and you can't get now, we're so lucky because we're able to outsource them.
Yeah.
Those resources that you need. And by outsourcing, I don't necessarily mean offshore team members. I mean to a coach or someone, like yourself in your training program. That's outsourcing. That's outsourcing, finding out how to do things. Learn from the other people that know the industry and have done what we haven't done. And there's also, I have 14 Filipinos and a couple of Malaysians that work for me. And I guess the lesson that I've learnt in those is that if they're cheaper up front, they require more training. If they're more expensive up front, you can probably get away with less training. So recruit the best, and people that don't have the skills that you have. Recruit the right people to do the right thing at the right time. And what you can't find, outsource to someone that can help you be better.
And there's some great sources now. I mean, years ago there was really nobody to help you. Now you've got Better Talent, Steve Trover's organisation. You've got Extent Team.
Yes.
There are.
Yes.
If you need people and you need them knowledgeable about the business and at any level, you can approach these companies and they're going to help you find them. It's not
That's
necessarily
right.
just going.
My other business.
Yeah, it's not really necessary to go out onto Upwork and do it all yourself.
It's not anymore. And my other business, Holiday Rental Experts, just this week has launched a outsourcing service for offshore team members that come already trained in STR. So we can talk about that at some other stage. So that was number six. So we're moving on to number 7, which we were sort of talking about anyway, which is be a coach and delegate. So obviously to scale, you need a team. You can't do it on your own, which is what we were just talking about. But you need to be able to be a coach to your team and to delegate as much as you can. And I've been really ordinary at both of those things. The more team members, I'm harsh on myself, but the more team members I got, the less time they got of me, which meant that perhaps I set them up for failure because I didn't share with them what I wanted from them and what their position being successful looked like for me and my business. And if I are probably reflecting, and all these things are reflecting, I'm far from perfect. In fact, I have mucked up, because we're on a podcast, I'll use the M word rather than the F word. I've mucked up more things in all of these points over the last 13 years than I care to actually think about, which is why I feel so passionate about sharing them with people that haven't been doing it for as long as you and I have, Heather. I've mucked them up, but I wish that I'd have coached my team. I've been more of a coach to every single person that came on board, because if I'd have given them a month or 3 up front, I probably would have set them up for success better over the years.
That is certainly
those people that, and the people that I was their coach and their mentor in the early days are still with me. So, I've got someone who's been working for me for 14 years, longer than I've been doing short-term rentals. I've got another for 11. I've got one coming up for 10. I've got 3 at 7. But those people knew Rebecca, they knew what Rebecca wanted, they knew the vision, they lived the vision, they lived the experience that we wanted to create for both our owners and our guests. And then we got big and Rebecca was stuck not in the admin or the doing things that actually weren't that important. Yeah, so I didn't provide them with that coaching, and I wish that I had have. There are a few other things under that. Don't be addicted to being right. There's been some times when I probably thought I was probably right, but it didn't matter. I didn't need to be right. I just needed to be soft and kind and caring. Give feedback, comes back to what we were talking about before. Create an honest, open environment where people aren't frightened. There's a few times I've got really cranky because people haven't done what I'd asked them to do, and then they don't tell you, so they hide things, and you never find out that they didn't call that owner back until you've received the termination notice, because they don't. Anyway, be open and honest environment is very difficult to create in an industry like ours where there's a million things going on at any one time, and we all make mistakes and we all miss things. And I say to my team all the time, if you haven't got a memory like mine, write it down, and don't leave your desk until you've got through everything that you've written today, because of course we know that you can get a blocked toilet in one of the 350 properties that we look after, and if you don't write down that toilet is blocked, you take 10 more calls and you've forgotten about the blocked toilet, and then you get home and you wake up at 11 o'clock at night after you've been asleep for a couple of hours and you go, oh shit, I forgot the toilet, and by that time someone else is having to deal with it on the after hours and the like. So communicate as well with your team. But number 7 is be a coach and delegate.
Yeah, I mean, I really resonate with the delegate, because I got...
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about that. Go for it, yes.
I held all these things in that I knew how to do. And it was just, it just was going to take too long to teach somebody else to do it. So I may as well do it myself. And I think this is what so many people do. Oh, I'm the best at it. It's going to take me ages to teach somebody, so I'll just carry on doing it. That's
exactly right. That's what I have, exactly why Delegate is there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that when we talked, we laughed about that, because it's being an entrepreneur. I think maybe the more successful entrepreneurs than us, Heather, I think are the ones that learn to let go and give it to someone else to do, because to super scale, well, we've got a few mates in the industry. I would call you and I scalers. We've scaled our businesses. We've got very successful businesses. You've been successful in the transition to exit, but we're not super scalers. And I think these super scalers are able to adequately... Oh, no, they're not control freaks like you and I have.
I figured that if I could have delegated out a lot more, we would probably have been a bigger company when we sold. Anyway, let's move on.
I'm with you. Moving on. Number 8. Don't be afraid to be expensive. Body has to be the most expensive. So discounting is a never-ending spiral. And it comes back to number 1, profit is sanity. If you have a fabulous business and your team believe in you and you deliver on your promises, there's no reason why you cannot be the most expensive. And in turn, if you are the most expensive and you are delivering all those things, you'll also be the most profitable. Right? So we come across regularly. In the areas that we operate, we probably are the most expensive, but we're also confidently the best. But obviously any new owner doesn't know that because they're not working with us. And any owner that comes on board that's newly a short-term rental owner doesn't know that either, because they've never experienced the competition. But I know, because I've seen people come and I've seen them go and I've seen them come back to us. And I say to my team, our competition know what we charge, And if they were confident that they could deliver the service and the bookings that we do, then they'd charge the same as us.
Yes,
right? They're just not confident enough.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Number 8 is don't be afraid. Yeah, don't be afraid to be expensive or the most expensive because someone has to be.
Yeah, exactly. Someone has to
But
be.
deliver.
But you just said it. You build that reputation, and that
correct.
enables you to charge more because people will seek you out because of the reputation.
That's exactly right. Number 9, know your competitors, but don't be afraid of them. I haven't spent much time at all over the years looking at what the competitors do, because I think all the time that you spend looking at that, you're not spending looking at your own business, and you can't change what they do. Copying, and I see that as flattery. We write new web description formats on our properties, and our competitors copy. We do something, a discount, third night for free or something, and our competitors copy. I think that if you obsess about the competitors, then you're losing focus on what you need to focus on, which is your own business. Don't compete on price. Don't get into a price war. In fact, walk away, I think. But stand tall and deliver on what you promise. Spend the time working on that so that you can actually do the step before, which is be the most expensive, and just ensure that you look better and that you are better. I think. So know your competitors, but don't be afraid of them.
I like that. We had a number of, in the early days, I spent a lot of time looking at the competitors because nobody was sharing anything. Everybody was saying, this is our secret, we're not going to let it out. But in the last sort of 5 or 6 years I was in my business, it began to open up. We created an alliance of property managers in the area. We got together every month and we talked about what we did, and then realized that we were all doing exactly the same thing. In general terms, we were all servicing the same clientele. We were going after the same owners. Maybe we were doing it in different ways, but I think just getting together as an alliance and a network and talking to them frequently, they became friends, and at the point they ceased being competitors. And yes, it's always healthy to take a look at what others are doing. But yes, you're absolutely right. Well, you will get copied. You will have competitors doing what you do, and for me that was always something to be proud of, because
flattery.
It's flattery. I felt really exactly flattered. Right. You're doing what we did, so clearly we're getting it right.
Yep, that's right. Exactly. So number 10, everything changes. Okay. One of the questions that I ask when I interview people is, do you like change? And I think there's a lot of people who in the world don't like change. And if that's you, don't work in short-term rentals because everything changes. Change is just a complete and utter constant. You can't really even plan for it. So you just have to plan for it. You can't plan for the change, so you just have to plan for the change. That there's going to be change. You can train your muscle, I suppose, and teach your team that we can take advantage of change, and we need to be able to pivot quickly in our industry. And that is love change, embrace change, and be ready to pivot at any time. And also, there's no time to be perfect in our industry, I don't believe. We've got to just get something happening. It's time to start it, get on with it, and do the best that you can, because everything changes. That's number 10. Yeah,
I mean, I'd see it. You mentioned the word pivot. I mean, the biggest pivot was COVID. COVID delivered the pivotal moments. We had to change entire business models, because what we had been doing was not working anymore, and it didn't. What we did in 2019 was not working in 2021. But when you've got a team that is prepared to see change happening, if that's being communicated to them way before that change happens, then that makes it more easier for them to to confront it and to roll with it.
Enjoy it. Yeah, roll with it. That's exactly right. You have to roll with it, otherwise it knocks you flat. as you go straight up. It's like when you jump, stunt people, when they jump and roll. I think that's what we do every day in our businesses. We jump and roll rather than fall flat on our faces, which is interesting because number 11 is more wand and less whip. So by that I mean be kind to yourself. If you fail, which you will, and if you make mistakes, which you must in order to learn, hopefully less, because there's people like you and I out in the industry that have got the runs on the board that are helping people to make less mistakes and learn from our lessons rather than have to learn the hard way from their own. But if you do, and you will, pick yourself up, shake yourself off, build an armour and a thick skin. You're likely to be your own worst critic anyway, because you're an entrepreneur and a risk taker, and create fabulousness. And by showing your wand and using your wand over yourself, your team, your guests, your owners, and less whip.
Yeah, be kind.
So number 11 is be kind to yourself, use more, and everyone else, use more of the wand and less of the whip.
I like that. I like putting it like that. It makes me think of Harry Potter and wands and things.
Yeah, that's right. Probably is a bit like that. And number 12, which is the final one, is be patient. That was my biggest struggle, I think. I wanted everything now, and I wanted everybody to deliver as quickly as I could. It's the old tortoise and the hare story, isn't it? That many of us, and perhaps even our youngest industry people probably don't even know the tortoise and the hare story. I'm not going to reiterate it now, but I think we as an industry are so lucky. We're building an asset, us business owners. We've got to remember that we're building an asset, a fabulous asset, and I know you do sessions that I've listened to about building it and then being able to benefit from selling out of it and how to do that. But we're creating intergenerational wealth. Or a great retirement fund so that we can go around the country in an RV and enjoy ourselves. But be patient, because it all takes time, and then we can go on and spend the kids' inheritance, Heather, before we have to give it to them. Know what your business is worth. A little pressure along the way is okay, because pressure creates diamonds, and we are creating a diamond asset by building our short-term rental businesses, which are very saleable. Good things come to those who wait, my mother used to say to me. Very old-fashioned saying. We're in it for the long game, and it does take time, and I think the longer the time it takes to build, the more solid it appears to be. So I think you and I having these long-term businesses, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20 years, they're a really good asset now. Whereas if you build them very quickly, many of my owners and many of your owners are my friends that we've grown together over 12 and 13 years. They stick by you and they support you even when times are tough, like COVID, and you have to pretty much shut down your businesses. So you have to be patient, and what you're building is a diamond. So the pressure that you feel is okay, because the end game is amazing, and I've built a cracking business that now supports my whole family beautifully, and the lifestyle that I now enjoy. It was really, really hard work. I think for the first 7 years, I think the 7-year itch is appropriate in business as well as relationships. So I think 7 years you get to a point where you've worked your butt off and your business is probably set up to give you the time that you want to be able to enjoy. But it also comes back to number 2, which is make the time now to do those special important things. Be patient is number 12. Those are my 12 lessons, 12 of hundreds of thousands of lessons, but they're the pertinent ones that I think really, when I reflect, I go, yes, if I'd have been better at all those things, I probably would have had a better, more profitable, even better, even more profitable, even more freedom-giving business. Heather.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of reflection now, with Brooke Fouts putting out his book, Vacation Rental Secrets, where he asked so many property managers what mistakes that they had made. And in fact, what they came up with, most of them, was what we could have done better. And I love that last one, be patient, because I knew when we started our business that we were going to sell it one day. But it wasn't going, it's not a pop-up shop. It's not one of these, it's not going to something that you're going to start up and then get rid of in 3 years' time. It's not that type of business. And we were 5 years out when we decided that we were going to sell, but it was going to take at least 3 to 5 years before we'd be in that position to make that sale. And COVID just happened. Happened to come along.
Yes.
And sort of the apple cart a little bit. But even so, because we were patient and we were well prepared. We were so well prepared for the sale. We had all our ducks in a row. We had all our figures. We had the business in the right state for sale. And I can't stress that enough for people, is that you don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to put my business on the market. You have to do it over a period of time and be prepared for it. And that be patient it taxed me sometimes when I was thinking, oh my God, I've got another summer to do. We can't do this yet, but we were patient. The other thing you said, which really resonated with me, it's what we call, because Phil, my husband, and I, we are skinnies, spending kids' inheritance now.
The plan's got to be to earn enough money that we can spend a lot, but still leave them enough to maybe, I don't know.
Take a holiday.
That's my hope, is that they'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
They probably won't have to work as hard as I have. They won't have to. I hope they choose to, because I think it's good for the soul to work hard and play hard as well. So,
well, you've been,
I do.
You've been monumentally successful, and it's out of that hard work. So so we heard at the beginning about your team management, but what about holiday rental experts? So what are you doing with that?
Okay. So the year 2024 is about holiday rental experts. I decided, after doing all these talks and the like, that I could actually monetize my mistakes and learnings and lessons and all the times I fell flat on my face instead of did that stuntman role. So now I have a few products in the coaching realm. So I'm not doing one-on-one coaching. I'm just doing one-to-many coaching. I have 3 levels of coaching that I'm going to launch in the next little while. One is a coaching program for small property managers who are just getting up and running. So it's called Focus and Grow, to help small property managers focus and do the right thing and learn from my lessons and grow. And then I have another coaching program called Empower STR Managers, and it's for, say, 30 to 200 properties. And then the next one I'm building is a super scaler, so to help people that want to be bigger than I am, because I think I can tell them how to do it, even though I couldn't do it myself, or I haven't done it myself. So we've got coach, and we're also building a outsourcing or offshore virtual assistance business, where we will provide short-term rental managers all over the world with virtual assistants, mostly in the Philippines, that have done some deep onboarding into the industry and understand, and perhaps even have had some experience in the industry, and people can recruit them, and they can either pay them themselves or they can pay us, and we'll look after those people in a call center in the Philippines. So outsourcing and coaching is our thing. We're doing a little bit of training in Australia, but that's just for our Australian folk, because in New South Wales and a few of the other states, Heather, I don't know whether, but we're required to be licensed real estate agents, and we have to do training annually. and in order to keep our licenses. And there's been never any short-term rental specific training. We've all done training that's about permanent rentals or sales, and that got a bit boring. So I went to the Department of Fair Trading who runs that training, and I got approval to build short-term rental related continuing professional development. So we're running that hopefully to 200 or 300 short-term rental managers over the next 2 months, because we've got to have it done by the 22nd of March. So each year. So that's all a bit of fun.
Yeah, it never stops, does it?
People can find us. No, it doesn't. People can find us on our website, which is holidayrentalexperts.com.au, which is AU is for Australia. I find when I say .au to Americans, they can't get my A. I think they think it's I, but it's A for Australia and U.
I will put that on the show notes. So.
Okay, darling, that's beautiful.
All right.
So thank you so much for today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's nice to see you.
We will probably cross paths again in 2024.
And we definitely will.
At a conference near us.
100%. Are you going to Barcelona?
I'm still working on that one.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather.
Not sure yet. But anyway, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased that I finally nailed you down on this one.
Beautiful. Lovely. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.